Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. What an honor it is to be here. It is such a gift to be sharing this time with everyone. I'm going to introduce Marina, which is going to come on and jump on with her part. Marina Seren is a psychic medium, conscious channeler, ET contactee, abductee, experiencer of hybrid programs, the Secret Space Program, Psychic Super Soldier Insider, and the MK Ultra Monarch Survivor. So Marina, thank you so much for being here today, and please welcome.
Thank you, Geraldine, and thank you, Tia. I love your presentation. So many interesting topics to talk about for sure. One of them being the SSP, my favorite, because I have a lot of history with it. I happen to be a person that just not experienced the Secret Space Program as in this lifetime, but in another lifetime, as I was part of the history of the creation of the space program itself. I'm talking about societies of Germany and Austria that were created during World War II and World War I. Specifically, if you see this pendant that I'm wearing, this is a symbol of one of the societies that I was part of in those lifetimes. It's called the Vril Society. When I was having my Kundalini awakening in this life, one of the things that I noticed is that these people are still alive. They have technology and techniques, spiritual techniques and technology that made them able to to stay alive besides much time have passed, you know. So many people are asking, where is Maria Orsic, that famous medium that, you know, it was the key to giving the German military back in the last century, all this technology that then it will create the Secret Space Program and the Dark Fleet and also the German civilians, you know, breakaway group, sorry. She's an awesome person. She's an amazing, beautiful medium. I was close to her in both of my past lives, and I will explain later what I mean with that. And so people are, as I said, people were asking, where is this lady? Where is Maria Orsic? Maria Orsic is alive. Maria Orsic is here on Earth. I have had contact with her. She has been guiding me for a long time. She's guiding also other people that she's connected to. But I did have telepathic communications with her as I was part of her societies, and also I was her lover in one of my past lives. Now, this is a pretty strange thing to say. You know, how is that I shared 2 lifetimes with one person? Well, as crazy as it sounds, I had 2 incarnations during this period of time, which is the World War I and World War II. I was told by my star family that I decided to take 2 incarnations in there. And in one of them, I was a real medium. I was close to Maria Orsic that way. I was part of these societies and I was working as a medium as he did. And I also facilitated a lot of this technology and information that the Germans got eventually during those periods of time. And in another incarnation, I was a high military man of Germany, and Maria Orsic was my lover. She and I had a relationship, a love relationship, a romance. And that's why I had such a deep connection with her. And she's close to me because we had a romance. We were partners and we were friends. So eventually what happened is that when Maria Orsic and these mediums started to channel all these informations to the German military, and they started to creating these spacecrafts and other kind of technologies to eventually create the space program and other breakaway civilizations. What they did is that when they observed that things were turning off negatively with the Nazi Germans, they started to make contracts with reptilians and draconians to create the Dark Fleet as we know it to be. That's exactly when the positive Germans and the real society women, the medium, that decided that that was not their path. That was not what the plan was originally about, because the technology was given to them on purpose to win the war against the Masonic people who wanted the New World Order, you know. They were fighting against communism because the communism coming from these Masonic beings that wanted, it's the ones that was coming from an intention to establish a new world order. So they were given this technology and purpose so that this kind of new world order was not imposed on Earth. It was a plan eventually. But when they observed that this plan was started to be interrupted or, negatively taken into a different direction, it's when the Germans, both the Vril, the Thule societies, then the Nazis, the National Socialists, all of them split into two different main groups, which are the darkly being the dark beings eventually, the ones who made contracts with the reptilians, the ones who performed the genocides, the ones who made contracts with the Greys, and they started to adopt people and to create all these different, programs like MK Ultra, etc. And eventually, the ones who didn't decided that they wanted that kind of path, who are positive oriented. And those are many of the German breakaway civilizations that we see that are in the north, in the South Pole, in inner Earth. We see Germans outside of the planet in the solar system, because they split into two different groups, because they are different. They just are not the same. Some of them decided to ally, to keep their alliance with the positive Pleiadians, and some of them decided that they wanted to gain more power, to become part of the elites, of the cabal. But nevertheless, Maria Orsic, when that was happening, she didn't stay like other Germans or hide in the poles or in inner Earth. She decided that she didn't want to do anything with this, so she eventually took a spacecraft and with her team, and they left to Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the star system of the beings of the Anunnaki Pleiadians, where they got their technology from. These are the beings that they consider to be their star family, or their the creators of one of the most influential, let's say, species of humanity, positively speaking. I have had contact also with them. I have had many incarnations as one of them. And so they have been helping me in recovering all this information. So as I was saying, that's when everything came to me in 2017 or 2018 approximately. When I was having my Kundalini awakening, it's when I started to receive actual communication from these beings, from the real societies, from the Anunnaki Pleiadians, from the positive space program groups, because as crazy as it sounds, there are some groups of the space program who are not working with the dark ones, with the dark fleet. They are working with positive ETs, and they are working for a liberation, of humanity. They are many times called the Alliance, I believe, but I think that name has been, transgressed or taken into different interpretations along, since it was ever first introduced. But as far as I know, they're making agreements with people not only from Aldebaran or from Pleiades or from, Andromeda. I don't know. They have many contacts, not only from those civilizations, but also from the beings who care a lot for us, which are the inner Earth people. The people are in the inner Earth. Those are nonetheless than our ancestors. And I have also deep connection to them, to specifically the Agarthans, which I have a contact from. I had actual experiences in which I was taken out of my body and I was being brought to Agartha. And they show me their civilization, and it's pretty much like the ancient civilizations that you will see as Atlantis and Lemuria. And that is because they come from there. They are a parallel evolutionary line of us, who refugied in the poles and inside of Earth, because another group of Anunnakis, which are their political enemies, they found a way to manifest a catastrophe who will try to extinguish them, so that the humanity will not be an advanced species. That's when the survivors remaining in the surface were gassed with a real specific technology. It was a gas that it's able to down a species. They were manipulated with a really specific technology, which is this gas that I'm talking about. We were brought back into a state of being that was less advanced than all these ancient civilizations like the Atlanteans, Lemurians, the Hyperboreans, etc. And that's how eventually they were able to bring back control over the earth people, to us, and slavery by, trying to extinguish the ones who were advanced, the ones who were maintaining that ancient knowledge that was brought, eventually in the past by these Anunnaki positive beings and more ETs. So these inner earth people are trying to make contact with the surface because they see us as their family. They are our family. They are our ancestors, and they want us to become again like them, to become advanced beings, to be able to have anti-gravity technology, free energy technology, to not have any kind of control over us, any kind of slavery, any kind of, anything that is negative. They don't want our negative circumstances and our challenges. They don't want any of that. So the inner people are trying to make contact with us, and they want to bring us back all of this knowledge that we lost over time. It's a really important thing that we not focus only in the, let's say, ET phenomena as much as also the inner earth, people. And this is something that the disclosure is not so discussed about. And I think that it was a great opportunity for me to bring forward, because to bring here in the table, because not many people are talking about these people, about these beings, and they're focusing mostly in the otherworldly, in the UIPs. As we hear in the hearing, we see cases of UIPs recorded, and I think that is really important that the scientists and the military not only discuss these things, but also that the earth is hollow. It's not as the models, as the scientific models that, we used to believe in when we were when we were taught that in the educational system of this planet, of this society. So I believe that it's really important that we remember our ancestry. We remember all these ancient civilizations that we once were, and we become again one with them, so that we can take our power back and stop the slavery, and of course stop the regressive secret space programs and the regressive ETs from doing all this harm that they did to us. I am a survivor of MK Ultra. I am a survivor of many horrible experiments. One specific, another let's say, organization that is part of these terrible crimes against humanity is called Umbrella Corporation. They are taking humans into their laboratory, into their military bases, and they're experimenting on super soldiers, abductees, psychic humans, starseeds, etc., like a bunch of different people. And they are experimented with virus, and they are the responsibles of some of the, let's say, events that we experienced with the pandemic and all of it in the past. So I don't want to talk really much about that, because again, this is going to YouTube, but they were responsible for virus manipulation, DNA genetic manipulation, human experimentation, human trafficking, all these different things. So, they have bases in Mars, they have bases in the moon, they have military bases on the ground. These people, these dark fleets, these beings are really looking for a transhumanist agenda and a new world order. And this is happening right now. And we are survivors of all of this. And we are here bringing these messages and this information forward, because with disclosure, we're making it happen so that the positive space programs have the visibility that they need to have, so that they take this, let's say, they embrace the role that they might have in this liberation of humanity, because they are participating they're participating in this process of disclosure and human freedom from slavery and from all these negative regressive groups so hard, and so, you know, every day they just do it so consistently and with so much love, so much enthusiasm, that, you know, I thought that it was really important to bring that up, you know, because if we believe that they are all against us, that's also not accurate. We need to stop thinking that all Germans were negative, because that's something that people want us to know. And why I say this is because recently the Germans, the positive Germans, have been helping me in regards to free energy technology. They have been guiding me. One of my dream careers was to become a physicist, and I'm still in the process of becoming a physicist. And one of the projects, one of the things that they wanted me to take part in, it's to learn, to remember, rather than to learn, to remember that I was part of these events in which we will give away and channel free energy technology, you know, anti-gravity technology. So we are like their representatives here on Earth, the survivors of the space programs, and they're looking for us. They know about us all, starseeds, you know, super soldiers. They know about us, and they're working with us in the astral or in the dream state with our clones. They have similar technology, of course, as the negative regressive space programs. So they are also at the same level, you know. So they're working with us, and I think it's time to give them that visibility. Like, I think it's time for people to become aware about the inner Earth people, about the good space programs and the Alliance, you know, these positive ETs that are trying to free us from the Dark Fleet, from the Draconian Empire. And that's a process that is already taking place. So I believe that they are going to be amazing guides for humanity. That is going to be a great era of disclosure. And I'm willing to inform people as much as I can about my experiences, my personal story, all the information I have, everything that I have to give, either positive or negative. And so it's a pleasure, for example, to be here for that reason, so that I can share and I can help in my own ways.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marina. That was amazing. So I would love to, I know Tia was talking a little bit about that. Maybe I can jump in and present for 30 minutes, and then maybe we can kind of talk about all these topics at the end. So let's make some points, and yeah, well, I love that. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, so really briefly, I'm going to introduce myself. I am the founder of hybridmother.com. It's an international research and support group for experiencers, hybrid parents, and interdimensional phenomena. I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, and I have a lifelong history of contact since a very early age. I am also having had 24 hybrid children as a result of that lifetime of contact. But my primary work is dedicated around understanding the hybridization program and disseminating our understanding of the hybridization program in connection to our bloodlines and our origins here seated in life and how it affects us. So my hybridization program and the research of commonly held dogma of the human genetic timeline, historical record, and human structure. And I've been a part of many different film projects, including Extraordinary Seeding, which focuses on talking about the hybridization program. So let me actually, there you go. Yeah, so really important topics that we talked about here with these two wonderful ladies. And my piece to this puzzle is really focused on, talking about understanding contact through our own personal experience, I think is really important. And I think it's something that we need to discuss more openly, because the work that we are all coming across here, all the uncovering that that we're doing here individually and collectively, is helping us build a picture of what and who we are through the experiencers that are raising their vibrational frequency and remembering all of their contact experiences. They provide a puzzle piece to a much deeper and more profound understanding of what we are as a human race. And one of the things that I'm a lifelong contactee where I have experiences as participant in the SSP program, but I'm not sure who originally coined SSP, Secret Space Program. I just know that I was utilized for military activity at a very, very early age, at the age of 5, in which I was taken on board draconian crafts and with reptilian underground bases several times, even up until recently in the past 5 years. And all of these different experiences helped me have an understanding of what the interest is and the investment that is very present in a lot of these kinds of bloodlines. Because of my contact experience through the hybridization program, just very briefly in 2013 was taken consciously out of my home in Union City, California, and introduced to my hybrid children. And when I met the hybrid children, it was a series of really profound realizations that I had been participating in creating these hybrid children for a very long time. And my question was, what is our role as humans? At what point does free will play a role in all of this? And what does that mean for how we are co-creating moving forward? As I became more aware of my contact experience and became more public and verbal about my contact, I started to experience more of the military aspect of it. And of course, abductions and, pretty interesting experiences that, could be quite categorized as quite traumatic experiences. But the purpose of that was to kind of understand that really what I realize it comes down to is ourselves as a soul, the human as a soul, and that soul as this connection and substance to an infinite consciousness, an infinite data bank that is encoded within our genetic makeup. And it's actually our genetics that are utilized as an access point into this source, our soul, which is that connection to the infinite bank of source. And when spliced, when fragmented through these kinds of very traumatic experiences, through the SSP program, through different kinds of abductions, different kinds of groups, is utilized to fragment the human in such a way that through fragmentation is embedded deeper and deeper into what we call this holographic matrix. So what I kind of realized was that the fragmentation that has occurred through trauma, and this is cyclical ancestral trauma that goes down generationally, all the way back to the very beginning of what we know as this current timeline, is occurring in simultaneous timelines in which we become fragmented in different dimensional layers, different dimensional planes. We are somehow accessing these dimensional planes and the aspects of ourselves that are fragmented in those dimensional planes by waking up, by raising our consciousness, by activating our DNA, by becoming aware and deprogramming all of this hypnosis and very limited perspective that we are kind of intoxicated and kind of drugged in our modern day society, that pulls us away from the profound connection to source and to seeing ourselves as what we really are. And the human as a multidimensional expression, as an emanation of this source, is actually an incredible fragment of a collection of consciousness that is here to experience infinite potential. And what that means is that all of this infinite potential is encoded and projected through our holographic DNA. Our holographic DNA is very much a holographic system that stores simultaneous timelines, is actively an access point to simultaneous timelines, simultaneous fragmentation, as well as future past lives are all simultaneous. So where does the role of free will play when we start having the awareness of this kind of contact experience? As a leader of my contact group, I have people from all around the world that come share their contact experiences, ET contact, military contact, MyLab, MK Ultra, all of these different programs that are being experienced and coming more into our awareness now, are coming into our awareness for a reason. We are in a current state of evolution. We are at a current collective vibrational frequency in which we have access and to the visibility and experiential awareness of the interdimensional. And what that means is that more of us are going to start recalling our contact experience. And so because of that, we need to educate ourselves on what it means to access this data, what it means to navigate that information, and how to reintegrate from that information. Why? Because as the two previous ladies were just talking about right now, we have so many different things that we are actually navigating in other dimensional planes that we have no notion of until we become conscious, until we become aware. So to me, that's really important. The process of awakening for a human in this little 100 years of life, potentially, that we have, is an opportunity to become awake in your waking state, so your everyday life and the life that you choose to live, but also in dream state and in preparation for death, the moment that you leave this body, or you reallocate, your awareness to another aspect of yourself. That means that we have the opportunity in all these different planes to do things, and we are constantly interacting in those planes. Our unconscious behavior, our consistent locking into hypnosis, being distracted, completely disconnected from the connection of the body and the soul, the understanding of how our soul functions, is the best way to manipulate and to utilize your body as a fractal, as a holographic body, and manipulate it in many different ways. We become manipulated in the physical plane by marketing strategies, energetics, and energetic techniques, bioweapons, pharmaceuticals, the food that we're eating, things that we're hearing, all of these things, electromagnetic fields, and the manipulation of weather and our environment, and so many other different things that are a product of these organizations that Marina and Tia were just talking about, are there to construct a very specific environment that allows the human to completely become disconnected from the activation of themselves and the understanding of awareness and how to navigate these planes, which, because we're unaware, we are very heavily manipulated in those planes. Dream state is one of the states that we are quite heavily manipulated in fact, because we are so unaware of ourselves that we are making all kinds of agreements with different groups, different aspects of ourselves, different levels of consciousness, groups with different vibrational frequencies, parasites. This is what I call parasitic consciousness, or consciousness that rejects itself, is looking to feed off something else. And so we become completely involved in these kinds of parasitic exchanges in many different ways. And this trickles down as a fractal model design of how we are interacting internally with ourselves, externally in the world, and then collectively with our greater human race and the role that we play here in the greater picture. So how can we kind of, change that? Number one, we have to obviously wake up from that hypnotic state. We have to become aware of ourselves, manage the emotions, learn how to work with the chakra systems, the vortices of our body, which are deeply, deeply encoding and programmed with cyclical programming since the origin of our existence in this holographic matrix. Now, how did that existence come to be? How did it become programmed is very important, because now we want to talk about how these thoughts and the structures of reality were designed. Our DNA is in our DNA is embedded ancestral lineage that we have been incarnating into and cycling through for many generations. Just like Marina was just talking about having a past life with Marina Orsic, several past lives potentially. we are coming in through resonance into these bloodlines that allow us to experience a specific construct. And these agreements that we make on the higher level to come into the earth, into this physical body, and experience your everyday life, the family that you have, relationships that you have, things that you're going to do and create in your life, but also the experiences that you're having in dream time and out of body as well. All of these agreements are designed before you even come into the manifestation of you as an energetic signature. So this is very important, because if we understand the mechanics of reincarnation, let's say reincarnation or the embodiment of this consciousness, you can begin to kind of understand why we are experiencing the things we're experiencing in these different dimensional planes. And also the idea is that we begin to work with the agreements that we have made, coming into awareness, and begin to dissolve the ones that are causing perhaps feelings of helplessness, and shift the way we are intentionally inputting into the hologram of creation. When I say we exist in a hologram, it's not just that this is imaginary and, it's not just that case. This is a very complex system of co-creation. And it's really important to understand that, because everything that you are and is embedded in your DNA, and the cyclical ancestral trauma that you have not resolved, that you haven't shifted, those patterns of suffering that you haven't ended, are a direct expression of programming that originates in very ancient bloodlines that have been cultivated, specifically designed to maintain the frequency at that level. And I'm talking about ancient family bloodlines from the origin of time that have been seeded on Earth. We are kind of a product of three main bloodlines that have first come in. These are draconian bloodlines, reptilian bloodlines, and the Middle Earth bloodlines, which connected, mixed in order to create many different agendas of hybridization. And we are a direct product of these hybridization programs. One of the oldest bloodlines can be the Kong bloodline, for example. We have the British royalty, we have the Italian ancient bloodlines. All of these different bloodlines, if you trace them back to the origin, we have a direct relation to. And why that's relevant to interdimensional contact and the SSP program is because all of the descendants of these very specific cultivated bloodlines are activated and deactivated in their DNA in order to access certain traits. We are genetically modified in a way where generationally we are cycling through different kinds of access to different traits that we have as humans: higher IQ, higher intuitive abilities, gifts and abilities to access information. We go generationally for the many generations that you've incarnated in this timeline. We are cycling in our ancestral lineage, accessing different points of this information. In this current timeline that we have all chosen to incarnate, we have reached the point in which the veil is so thin that this interdimensional meshing is available to everyone, which means that you have access to your intuitive abilities in a way that's more accessible than before, but also the ability to access interdimensional aspects of yourself, work with those interdimensional aspects, reintegrate your fragments from there, break cyclical contracts that have been embedded in our ancestral lineages, as part of this holographic matrix for, you can say centuries, and time is not linear, it's simultaneous, but we are constantly moving in and out of these things. So the opportunity now, with the education that we're receiving from all of these wonderful people that are here sharing their experiences, is to understand how to become an empowered human participant in this current timeline. It's very important to understand that as we deprogram all of the programs of limited belief systems that are heavy emotions, anywhere where we ourselves become parasites to ourselves and to society, we can shift the way that we are vibrationally experiencing and accessing the activity that we're doing on these different dimensional planes. Not only that, but your genetic code, you are editing and writing in vivo the next generation. And so in the hybridization program, for example, the children that I created, 24 hybrid children, are a direct expression of all of these cyclical programs that I have been a part of. And the hybridization program runs in the family. So mother, grandmother, on and on and on, down my mother's lineage and my father's lineage have had contact. And the family, when you trace their family trees to the origin, you see that we have a very, very old bloodline. And for most of you that are here in this group, if you were to trace your bloodline, you would find the same. We have roots in these bloodlines, royal bloodlines, these very high family cultivated bloodlines, because our ability when incest is done within a family, for example, these bloodlines are cultivated. They're genetically modified, meaning that they don't allow anything else to come in and taint the data that's there in that bloodline. It strengthens the information that is in that genetic line. And what happens is that our psychic abilities and the abilities on the next level, the fifth, sixth, seventh dimensional aspects of ourselves, become highly, highly activated. So these people are being utilized for programs like the SSP, programs like these MK Ultras. These children are born already with these abilities, just as I was, in that I was utilized for my psychic abilities for remote viewing at the age of 5. You know, and many other people here have had that experience as well. So how can we, you know, begin to activate and utilize the information that is being expressed from this genetic code in order to help move us forward, is by first having mastery over the physical body and beginning to become very lucid in your dream time, so you can begin to access the contractual agreements that you're making with these aspects of yourself. Contact that we have interdimensionally is a projection of the data that is in your genetic code. You are made up of the beings that you are interacting with. It's in your genetic code. This is why you have access to seeing and experiencing that unique vibrational signature, whatever dimensional plane. Even if it's in the military, we have families, like history in that military bloodline. And so we have participated in these groups. So to change that, to end some of these contracts, to shift some of those, we first need to understand the role that we play and the manipulation aspect of that, and break those contracts in order to no longer continue experiencing some of them. However, we live in a dualistic reality in which, you know, we think separation is an illusion. Ultimately, what we need, what we want to understand from all of this, and this is always something that I want to end with, that we are one, ourselves, and all of these, even if they are parasites in our multiverse, we are learning how to become conscious, empowered human organisms that can transcend and break and end these cyclical parasite programs by becoming aware, becoming conscious, and empowering yourself as a human, and you know, activating your abilities to navigate these higher realms. And it's very, very important at this time in our collective evolution that we all take a moment and teach ourselves, train ourselves to cultivate those abilities, because a lot of you that are here on this call right now are having contact. You're having contact, you don't know how to navigate sometimes these experiences. So we need to understand who you are. You are the center of your universe, and you are the master of the things that you're experiencing. So even within these programs, we have to shift. We have to learn the mechanics of creation in order to move from some of these parasitic groups and contribute to the new world that we're trying to create here, away from these groups that are trying to control and make us fall asleep, you know, deeper. So that's pretty much what I really want to share. And I guess what I'll do now is I'll open the floor, and I really would love to have Marina and Tia just jump in, and we can just kind of pick a topic and maybe take questions.
Yeah, and if I could just say, I don't want to seem like I'm being like too horribly or overly negative, because a lot of this stuff is very negative, um, but that is part of the process, and I do want to note that if we really do want to integrate, we have to become aware of maybe some darker things. And not just that, but it seems to me that, at least in my experience, and then also my husband's experience, in also going through this process, that when you do start to remember, it's what I believe is happening is that our awareness is expanding, our mind is reintegrating, and that this part of ourself that does know these things is almost seems to be like a traumatized person, and that a lot of negative emotions come forward, and they could even be positive memories. And at least that was the case for me initially, as it seems like that subconscious aspect of myself was waking up. But yes, we are getting a lot of help. I haven't talked about my memories related to the timeline in this particular junction in time, and how much effort has been made to make it effectively neutral, if you want to call it that. So because I actually believe from my memories that we come actually from a much more negative timeline, and that there's been a lot of positivity that has been injected into this particular nexus so that we can actually become aware and make our own choice in who we want to be. And so with that, I have to echo, very much how you're talking about becoming aware, being positive, finding the things that make you tick and that help you connect to yourself and connect to nature and to who we are and our families, our history. Because it is very complex. And I do remember that a lot of connected to who we are as a species is very much rooted in some very complex histories. And those things are very interesting and they are very empowering. But humanity is a very special species. We are very powerful. And I think that that's why we're in this place, because there are a lot of people who are parasites, and I don't think that they are empowered to break this cycle of negativity. I think humanity is, which is why we've been put in this place, as hard and difficult as it is. And so, yes, I definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love that. And I just want to reiterate, because I think sometimes we get lost in the words of saying, I really want to make sure that we don't get lost in the idea that what we're headed for is positivity.
Mhm.
That's not what we want. In my opinion, we live in duality. We need to learn how to come to that point of ultimate consciousness and unity with all things, which means that we understand and dive into the darkness. And that's really what all of this is about. We're learning how to become friends with the unknown on all dimensional layers and all dimensional planes and all expressions. So it's not about coming purely into joy, happy-go-lucky and joy. It's about coming into a state of neutrality and observation, awareness, that we can experience the human part of it, which can be very traumatic. Yeah, I also had that. And then also, these higher aspects, but to be in that neutral is the most important, and actually physically, scientifically, psychologically, the only way to actually affect this consciousness experience that we're kind of participating in.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was a great presentation, Geraldine. I always love your information about the morphogenetic field, genetics, pretty much everything about, including cycles of energy, lineage. It's pretty complex information, but you are always so on point with everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Maybe we can take some questions from the audience and see if anybody, we can start up a conversation.
Yeah, actually, I've had quite a few questions that have been sent that I'd like to go ahead and ask. I have one directed specifically for Tia from Barbara, and she said, so if we are being manipulated by evil forces, what can we do about it?
Well, like Geraldine was saying, first becoming aware of it, and how you have participated in the different aspects of the spectrum. Let me put it that way. And then from there, learning how to remove the related distortions that are keeping us in chains, and making better decisions and taking care of yourself. And for me, I have had to inject a lot of positivity into my life, because what I'm dealing with has so much negativity to it. And I've had to learn how to bring myself back, and pull myself out of my grief and my anger and my frustration and fear. And I, like, for instance, I try and eat as good of a diet as I possibly can, and really focus on my nutrition, taking herbs and supplements, meditating, music, just listening to really good quality music, the high vibrational stuff that we always talk about. But it's a little bit of a catch-22, because the more you do that, the more you open up. And so you continually get better and better through the cycle of elevating yourself, because as you rise, in a sense, your capacity increases, and you can almost begin to see more of the picture. So, but yes, I do think that humanity can break out of this, and that we will break out of it. But we do need to just keep doing the internal work, I think is best, is what I heard some different people have said. Doing your own internal work, and basically reconnecting to yourself and becoming more of who you are. That might be an oversimplification, but
Great.
That's how I see it. So.
Great, thank you. And I want to thank all three of you ladies. You've done a beautiful, beautiful job of presenting this information. I've received so many questions that what I'm going to do is ask the audience if they would like to just raise your hand to go ahead and ask some of these questions. And while people are kind of formulating those questions, do any of you ladies have any final comments that you would like to share to sort of wrap up the presentation that you made, or to make comments on the presentations that you've heard?
I really love maybe touching slightly on the topic of, I think both of you brought it up, but Marina was talking about how we are kind of going through, and this is true, it's like certain genetic bloodlines are targeted in a way where they are being eliminated at this time specifically. And I think that's an important topic to kind of touch on, especially with everything that's happening in the world around us today. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit at some point. I think that's important.
Yeah, right now would be a great time to do that.
Yes, and I would like to give my own comment on that. I have been witnessed and I experienced observing how there is a political war in terms of Anunnakis. The Anunnakis are a great family of many different subtypes of races among themselves. Some are more mixed with reptilians, some are more mixed with humans, some are more Pleiadian Nordic. There are variations, but generally they are that hybridization between this reptilian and human DNA, human angelic DNA from Lyra. Now, the Anunnakis are various. So that means that when we were created, we were made of different kinds of Anunnakis that they had among themselves. They had a lot of political conflicts. So if we observe our history, we can witness how we're always observing that there are groups of beings who are fighting these other groups of beings, and we see like wars like the East and the West, and how everyone wants to conquer each other, all those different movements along history of lineages of peoples, it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's the politics of these Anunnakis that create us eventually. And so the point is that they use us as if we were like in a chessboard, and we were their pieces of chess to play eventually in this playground of Earth their own differences, their own genetic differences, because this is something that comes from, eons of time ago. This is something, these are wars and conflicts that they had with them among themselves, even, like thousands and millions of years ago. So it's something like, it's something about them in history that has been transpassed to in their genetics that now it's repeating, and they are using us for that. And some of them, fortunately, are more oriented, are positive oriented, and they are fighting for our justice, they're fighting for our freedom, and they're helping us understand the dynamics of consciousness so that we become eventually mature enough, spiritual mature enough to do the internal work that is needed so that we can eventually go forward with this conflict, with these inner conflicts that we have got from the heritage, and put them like an end to it, and eventually bring peace to this new earth, that is going to follow in this positive timelines that are coming, that we're creating, as a prediction of our consciousness evolution. So a reminder that not all Anunnakis are going to want to control us. There are some specifically, which are my family, my star family, that are here to help us. And anything that I have to say about them is positive. So I think that's a really great positive thing.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I also want to add that, some of these descendants from these bloodlines that are currently at this time, I mean, how do we, stop that kind of targeting? How do we become empowered? Because one of the things that I'm really passionate about is empowering people to be their own healers, to be their own protectors, and not necessarily think that we are relying on anything external to save us or to take us out from anything, because it is absolutely an inside job, because it's within that we can access these higher dimensional planes and even affect anything when we have mastery over the self. It's kind of our genetic expression is activated, it shifts, it changes completely. There is an inner transmutation process that occurs where we completely change, and the vibrational frequency of who you are begins to heal this ancestral stuff. All these lineages that we're talking about, the Draconians, the Anunnakis, all these, we have those embedded and encoded in our own genetic bloodline. So, we have to remember that we are reintegrating from these draconian consciousness and all of these things. We need to do that inner work by reintegrating from there.
Yes, let's say that we are like an equation. So we contain both elements, but the difference is that eventually we are now part of the other side of the equation, whilst a multidimensional facet or aspects of ourselves were in the past, or in the future, the other side of the equation. So we're always playing dynamically that change of roles of victim, abuser, or, a perpetrator and targeted person.
Maybe we can take some questions now, Sheila.
All right. I don't see any hands up at this moment. I do know that there have been huge, whoops, let me go back, and we have Susie and Paul with their hands up. So Susie, let me go ahead and just have you to ask your question, please.
Well, it's not so much as a question as it is an acknowledgement. I'm one of those ones that I think I've suffered a lot in this lifetime, and I'm always arguing with the source when it, that one that says, God won't give you more than you can handle. And for a couple of decades, I'm going, you're way over the edge. But whenever I listen to you guys about the MyLab and what you've been through, and 20 and back, and the secret space program, and I've studied this in depth on Gaia TV. I was watching Cosmic Disclosure back when David Wilcock was, and Cory Good, and they I don't know, they're not with Gaia anymore, but I am just so humbled at what you've all three communicated and what you've been through, and also the way you have been able to transmute that into being such light beings and, you know, such carriers of information. Because, you know, like the song and like Tia said, it's hard. This is a very serious battle, and there's very serious stuff that we would rather not look at. It's not as comfortable. It's much more fun just saying love and light and stuff. But I just so appreciate and honor each one of you for coming forward and sharing, because, and I honor you for making it. I mean, making it through some of the things that you've been through. I just, thank you. Honor.
Thank you, Susie. Okay,
Thank you.
Paul.
Hi, thank you so much for your presentations and sharing your stories. I was really curious about the past lives and parallel lives. And I've had dreams, and trying to get the story out afterwards is very difficult. I use Post-it notes, and I've made cards to profile each of the, you know, the alternates. And I find that it's really helpful. I was wondering if you had considered making a collectible trading card or an NFT with those personas.
No, I haven't actually.
That would be huge. I mean, I don't know about you ladies, but I've been through all my past lives. I mean, it would be hundreds, thousands, you know, that would be very difficult. But yeah, that's interesting. And I love that you are acknowledging your past lives and you're doing that work and looking at those, you know, patterns that you're reliving. That's super powerful work. And I think that, you know, this is kind of the key to our liberation as an individual and a human race, is to reintegrate from these repetitive patterns, especially from our past lives. Our past lives hold information and also contractual agreement to things that we're experiencing in the non-physical. Some of our ET contacts, some of our agreements with the military have been done in past lives in situations where we have been less conscious, less aware of how it would affect the collective. So these are great opportunities to begin to dissolve some of that continual work. Thank you for that question.
Beautiful. Thanks. Thank you, Paul. Okay, Ross, you have a
Hi.
question.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for a very informative presentation. A lot of good knowledge and reinforcement, and that is always awesome. I love it. Love it. So I have a couple questions and maybe comment. Tia, so I have, you know, please dispute me if I'm wrong. You know, I have, you know, it's, you know, I love conversation. I just love the, you know, discussion, intelligent discussion. So. So we, you know, yes, we've been in this temporal and interdimensional war, and people look at me like, oh, this guy have two heads. No, we've been in this temporal war. It's a very, very real thing that's happening. But I have also heard that the Sikaar Empire, which is the, you know, the Draco Reptilian, they have left or been kicked out, and also the Orion Empire, which is the AKA Naboo. They also been kicked out of the solar system. So I don't know if that's truth or what's the merit to this? What do you think?
I would probably say it's not true because they're massive out there. Okay, they're massive. We are our little Earth here, and I think we're trying to. Now, I mean, I don't have the intel, okay? So let me tell you that just straight point blank. I'm not connected to the military at this junction in time, at least not consciously, because I am still being, I am active in, I believe, multiple programs right now, but, you know, they basically have your soul on file, and you get re-downloaded every single time they portal you over there. But with that being said, they're massive out there, and I just think that's probably not quite a possibility. I think if we can kick them off Earth, that would be great. And if that was a reality, you would know it. It would be public information. It would be on the TVs. So out of the solar system, wow, that'd be very tough shoes to fill. So.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the info. And also, last question is for Geraldine. Yes, I those kids. Yes, it's a very real. Yes, it's reality. There's another civilization, another of us, a part of us that it's there, out there, and it is real as like me and you talking. It's and however, some very interesting things I've been listening. And last week, Elena Denan was on Laura Eisenhower, and Elena I don't know if you know Elena, wonderful lady. She have shared some very interesting development, breaking news that looks like a lot of the hybrid programs has been ended or has been forced to be ended. I mean, you can go on Laura's YouTube channel. You can pull up the interview. Just fascinating. So wow, there's been stuff happening behind the scenes that actually some of those agreements that's been. I mean, those are very, very deep interspecies really agreements that's been basically rescinded or has been, I guess, broken. I don't know. Do you know any of that stuff? If is this truth or not, or what do you think?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Really important, and I get asked this question a lot in my groups, actually. Well, here's the thing. We need to understand that, again, time is not linear. It's simultaneous, okay? So that means that we're experiencing the past and the future at the same time. We have access to all of these fragments of ourselves, which are existing in different timelines, okay? Time is just a way to measure how things are kind of puzzle pieced and what we have access to. The hybridization program, first of all, we are the hybridization program. We are a product of the hybridization program. And aside from that, we also need to talk about cloning programs, which also utilize our genetic data, okay, to create alternate universes with the same, okay? Which means that the hybridization program is something that is ever existing. And I would love for you to shift the idea of the hybridization program from just creating children to an organism sustaining life. Okay, we live in an organic multiverse in which the celestial bodies that we see, everything has consciousness, everything is sustaining life. So in order to sustain life and continue this existence that we're co-creating, there will always be an element of that third in the three-dimensional plane. There will always be a birth of something. There will always be a hybridization, because this is how data and organisms are spliced in order to continue multiplying and to sustain the allocation of infinite life force in this multiverse. So aside from that, just from the human experience, in dream state, we're experiencing multiple timelines in different dimensional planes. So you can't, in the way when you think of that complexity and you say the hybridization ended, that would mean that our civilization is the last civilization, and then that's it, like the souls. So there is no beginning and end to things. This is a non-linear timeline that we exist and participate in co-creation. Perhaps for some people, they are ending their contractual agreements in more parasitic programs. Fantastic. That's a level of awareness and a work that has to be done ancestrally as a collective human race at this time. So the other part of that is that I currently have many clients that I'm working with that are still experiencing the hybridization program. Their children, young, late women, 16, 18 years old, are experiencing hybridization programs right now. And I don't believe that this phenomena has stopped, because it's not just a phenomena. It is the sustainability of a matrix, a multi-matrix, multi-dimensional that we are participating in. So this is my take. This is totally my opinion. I'd love to hear what the other ladies have to say. Maybe they have something to add or to contribute.
Yes. I would like to give my opinion on that too, because I think that it's great to have diversity of different perspectives. I appreciate Geraldine's, and I think it's a great, a valid truth, you know, in her reality and many other thousands of lives reality. My personal reality with the hybrid program is that the Greys are beings or a species that when they observed that they needed help from us to maintain themselves alive, to not extinguish, let's say, to find viable DNA to perpetuate their species and their own personal soul evolution, their own cycles of energy, because we are actually, they are part of our, like a parallel future from our timeline. I believe that they represent a parallel aspect of ourselves that, you know, right now they are asking us for help because they took the wrong path, unfortunately. Now, to my perspective and understanding, they need us, but we necessarily do not need them in order to survive, because it's, you know, for example, the Sasquatch beings that were not created through hybridization, but rather were natives or indigenous from this planet. They continue their linear, I mean, not linear, but their own evolution in this planet, and they transcended to higher densities without the need of any mixing with other species. So to my understanding and what I have personally experienced, the Greys are being pretty much a little bit manipulative with contracts being made on astral and higher levels, because they truly need us to survive, and they want Earth as their, let's say, environment for that kind of evolution to propagate, because the ecosystems are like they need, DNA needs an attachment or a connection to ecosystems and a planet's life in order to continue that sort of organic evolution, you know, that consciousness evolution, because we have this convergence of many different organisms from many different layers of consciousness, like the two density beings, the first density beings. So because they know that, they are a little bit tricking us into believing that we need them to survive into the next level of evolution or to transcend into higher dimensions, when in fact they represent a valid, you know, timeline that if people want to take, they are in their free will to take it. But if you're not, if you do not feel that you want to take that path of mixing with the Grey DNA, with the Grey timeline, then you're free to not choose it.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, Mariana, and thank you, Geraldine. Appreciate the insights. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I have
Great.
a weird, probably about 25 years ago, I came to awareness once, and this is an interesting thing, because I grew up like as a Mormon, okay? And so when I was 18 years old, or 19, I once had this strange visitation, and it was of myself and a hybrid Grey that was me and Grey DNA. It was both half human, half Grey. And they were, at the time I didn't know what to call it, but I knew that they were time traveling and they were visiting different space times. And I was given the information that this was something that I agreed to help their race. And that as a superstar seed, a lot of what my work is in doing is to promote life, and that was one thing that I agreed to. And so when it comes to other hybridization programs, I do have I have been used in those programs as well. I do remember all sorts of strange things related to children and pregnancies and genetic manipulation and you know, I once had this memory of basically these hybrids. They're like kind of part pterodactyl. I mean, that's the best I could explain it, in that I gave birth to 15 of them, and then 15 of them were grown in a some sort of a pod. So anyways, so not to get like too weird. I don't even know if that, you know, sorry, it's just for me, I feel uncomfortable still with some of this stuff, because it's like, wow, that's really out there. But I remember making them food and actually cooking on the stovetop and feeding them. But anyway,
No, Tia, nothing is weird here. No, sorry, nothing is
right,
weird.
I know.
Nope.
But that's the best that I could say as far as when it comes to like any kind of gray hybridization. But there are a lot of grays, and that's the other thing I have to say is I know there are Zeta reticulis, which I don't quite remember. I remember a little bit. I remember tall grays. I remember I had a very kind of profound spiritual experience connecting telepathically with a tall gray. But I also have very negative experiences with some of the soul manipulation where they had moved my consciousness around into other bodies. But I don't necessarily look at that as especially negative because I remember some of those lives because like I was saying, it's kind of a incarnation technology and that these people are trying to seize the power of incarnation and that they have done that to a certain extent. But I believe that they're trying to learn about the soul through these experiments and that it's not necessarily malicious, though we might perceive it that way. But that's how they perceive it. But I was taken once, my consciousness to what I believe to be a second moon around the earth. And I had an experience with a very, very negative gray. And he was mean and nasty. But so there are a lot of different, I mean, there's just so much going on, but I know that there are some races that just cannot procreate and they have to use technology to further their race. And so long as that there's a need for that, the hybridization aspects I think will continue. And this is the type of thing that people on Earth, once they start to open up, they will start to begin to understand that they are a part of these things, like Geraldine is saying. So, but we are hybrids, right? And so, and going in terms of past lives, I believe that human beings are actually Anunnaki. And that there was a war among the Anunnaki, and that the people here who are being manipulated are basically the losers of that war, and that our evolution has been downgraded over time, and that there have been many installments throughout our solar system and on the Earth where they keep continuing to try and control us, and they keep effectively making us smaller and smaller, so to speak. And so, and then from there, they are mixing up so much DNA. And so, and so when you do that inner work, you will become more and more aware of what you are. And one thing I haven't shared publicly either, except for maybe once on Facebook when I was venting, but I had a memory that and I was actually talking with this woman who was educating me about my DNA, and she was telling me that I was part of her race, and she was an ancient worm race. When I say worms, I mean like kind of space worms or, and that they're one of the oldest races in the universe, and that I have their DNA, and it's an honor. These are things that she was telling me. And she's telling me about certain aspects of my body, which are actually vestigial, is that the right word? But anyways, there are aspects of this DNA. And so it's interesting, we're a total mix, we're mutts all the way. And that's probably just never ever going to, change. That's just life. Life is always mixing with itself and changing and creating new forms of itself. And I think that's a good thing. I think that the biggest part in all of this, that's really the problem, is that our free will is just being manipulated in our choice. And in the end, because it's like when we hear about this technology, it's in the end, it's just showing us different aspects of life and what we are. But the problem is just that we need to be more involved and more aware of how we are involved and in the decision-making process. Even if we did agree to these things on other planes and whatnot, we're in this interesting central point here where I'm hoping and I believe that humanity will break free of it and hopefully end the cycle that is perpetuated throughout our solar system and beyond of slavery. That's what I think ultimately this war is really all about. And that's why we're here. And that this point in time is an important junction in that process. But it's a very end point in this process. It's been a very long process, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of years. Kind of depends on what point you're talking from. So anyway.
Thank you. Always remember and reaffirm, choose love.
So true.
Thank
Choose
you,
love.
Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So we
Welcome.
only have time for a couple more questions, and let's see, Debbie, you had your hand up. Let's go ahead.
Well, greetings, my star family, and thank you, Sheila, for pulling this panel together tonight. And I'm being asked to read what Phil just wrote here. And he said, I want to thank Marina, Geraldine, and Taya for providing a lot of important context and significant info regarding programs and agendas which are important to become aware of to understand the larger picture of events unfolding in our lives. And so, Sheila, I felt guided to also mention to everyone here that you have the WISH hybrid conference, almost a month away? When's that date? Yeah. So this is like a warm up for that. And I'm just so deeply moved by the combination of all the skill sets, right, of the sisters here. The piece that I'll add in is that, Geraldine, when you were speaking of that beauty of that neutrality, my crews basically call that the alchemy. And Marina, when you were talking about the benevolent aspects, right, of the Anunnaki that you're aware of, I appreciate that because it's part of the great mystery, right? That it's not just one vector, that we have these fractals of consciousness. And then, Tia, in your affirmation of what I really hear you saying today is a call for sovereignty, embodied sovereignty.
Yeah.
And that to me is our royal heart. A royal heart can choose embodied sovereignty and liberation from these previous explorations of stark contrast. So what I would also funnel into our family is a question about a progression that I saw in all of my near-death experiences, because I too also came to transmute the MK Ultra in my second walk-in, which is 1977. I was given a glimpse of basically orgasmic grace, where the entire omniverse tree of life, which is the entire omniverse ancestral tree of life, can go through a metamorphosis experience into the code name tree of love and then tree of grace, which means that the end result, quote unquote, in the ongoing moment of creation of what's possible from all these energies, discovering how to respect and also hold that autonomy in that witness position that you were describing, Geraldine, from that space of balanced harmony, being able to surrender and bow to the 0 point of it all. That's to me what I've seen as the largest omnidimensional orgasm consciousness has ever experienced. And that was actually part of the prime directive in the seeding of all the different scenarios that you've actually so beautifully summarized tonight. Does any of this sound remotely familiar? Like a collective remembrance? I'm doing my best to give it English, because English isn't my first language. So I stay curious, right? And that's my invitation. I'm curious how this all can birth into something exquisitely heretofore unprecedented.
Yeah, I think we're all experiencing to go back to wholeness, to go back to that white light, from the spectrum rainbow that becomes fractalized back to that white light. We are all going back to that white light. And so we are going to encounter all of this. So yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you, Debbie.
I think that word sovereignty, like that just sums it all up in one word. I like it.
Right, sure, yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Alexander, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, hello. So thank you everybody for your presentations. I want to ask, when we talk about hybrids and clones, would you be able to find out if you were a clone? And do those clones also have the ability to heal karmic cycles and karmic contracts?
Well, I can comment a little on that. A clone is kind of like a photocopy of yourself, but it doesn't have necessarily the complete organic element to it as the embodiment of a soul. The kind of clones that are being created for these specific programs are more like artificial intelligence rather than, let's say, more organic consciousness, or consciousness that has the ability to become aware of itself easier. These are designed to not become aware of themselves because they are created in order to participate in more militaristic type agendas that are mainly managed by draconian bloodlines that create hundreds and thousands of these clones in order to populate other Earths for the purpose of absorbing certain vibrational frequencies of them that are usually in the lower levels of emotions, like what we have heard as loosh. People talk about loosh, this very, very heavy energy vibrational frequency. So a lot of these clones are utilized for that purpose. The directive is to control the emanations that they produce as whatever activities they're designed to do. And a lot of them are designed to go into kind of war scenarios for that reason, you know. So how would you know that you're a clone? Really, I think that our job is, we probably all have clones. This is an opinion, but I believe that we probably all have clones in a sense because of just the design that this matrix hologram, this Earth that we participate in. When you're born on this Earth, you know, your genetic data is open, like it's open to whomever you've interacted with in your bloodline. So that is utilized to create many different programs. And for example, us that are here that have participated in a secret space program, those of you that are also here that have as well, if you have been in those kinds of military programs, chances are you definitely have clones, because they you know, they take the data from your body to replicate in order to control. Okay, so how would you know? How I found out is, of course, meditation. I'm gonna just go right there. It's essential. You cannot get into any of this information until you sit and meditate with yourself and start to activate your intuition, your intuitive abilities. And when I became aware of my contact experience at that level, I began to ask questions about why I was participant in these groups, and it took me down the rabbit hole of my ancestral lineage. So my advice is maybe take a look at your ancestral lineage. If you have any military involvement in your bloodline, you might have a good chance that you are a participant in these groups, because again, these bloodlines are cultivated for centuries or since the beginning of our known time, in which the bloodline is combined with specific information, which means different species, you've been hybridized, and that creates a cocktail of DNA that is perfect for certain agendas. And so you would be able to understand what the agendas you've participated in by going into your history, okay? And believe it or not, the access to that information is through the emotional body, because the more that we hold deep, heavy emotions, more of our reptilian, draconian aspects are more present and available in our genetic data. So we have to go and reintegrate from those parts to rebalance the emotions, and then be able to go beyond the hologram, the hypnosis hologram that we've kind of embedded. Okay, that would be breaking the programs, and then be able to see truth beyond that. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to add about a little bit of my information on clones. To my understanding, when you are a main culture person, when you are fragmented, your consciousness is fragmented. And these military people groups clone your body. It's for a really specific purpose, which is to use those alter egos from your personality, your fractalized personality, parallelly, simultaneously to your current frontal personality operating in this plane, in this physical matrix. So they have the technology to create clones to wire up their neurological systems or neurological connections so that they can tune in the specific frequency signature of the personality ego alter and channel it so that an alter that they created through MK Ultra can be channeled in that vessel and they can operate in these military programs and agendas.
Mhm. Well said.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I recently had a kind of interdimensional contact. I came in front of this council again, and I presented myself like a future aspect, a simultaneous aspect of myself was presenting a clone of myself to this council. And there was no dialogue, but I just remember I walked through like this portal and then I became a child again. And I was like inserted back into like another, what felt like civilization, but I knew it was Earth still. And then I have another question. I don't want to take up too much time, but I recently had an encounter with a UFO or a craft. And when I looked at that craft, I felt like a great love, but I saw the different dimensions of that craft. And I understood that it was controlled by intention and thought. And it kind of gave me this idea, and this is a silly question, but if a craft can be moved with intention, can we move our body through the physical with that same intention, like kind of how like a craft or a UFO is moved?
Through space and time, is that what move your body through space and time? So
Yeah, like can we move it like kind of like instant transmission or kind of like teleport or fly or even heal our bodies? Because I felt like this thing was like, it would move from like this, like it looked like metal or organic, and then it would like kind of like disintegrate or like kind of like just slowly turn into that nothingness. And so I felt that, well, since we're one with everything, are we also capable of controlling that matter or manipulating that matter because we're one like that craft?
yes.
Yes. Many times the spacecrafts are extensions of the higher self. They create them with really specific crystals that can tune into that frequency signature of your higher self. So that way they are connected to your inner technologies within your body, within your DNA.
Exactly.
From what I understand, in our depreciated state here, for individuals who are still able to travel in that way, those are the people who are used in the MyLabs, and that your pineal gland, I believe, is actually a wormhole, and that I believe that when they actually pull you off planet, any human being, that they're actually accessing that. The problem is that they have control over it. We don't. But for those individuals who are still able to access that, that's why they were used in the programs. And so I do have experiences of when I'm meditating or sleeping or in dream state of traveling and traveling through holes, and I see different kind of strange stars rotating, a white and a black star rotating, and so I have different experiences like that. And when that happens, I know that I am traveling, at least astrally, perhaps physically. So or maybe sometimes physically. And so yeah, that is a real thing. Human beings are capable of that. If our bodies are allowed to heal, and they're always constantly healing, I do believe that that's the divine life force is always constantly trying to repair us. And it's this system that we have that is surrounding us that's always trying to break us down. And so if you make it your own personal battle to fight that, to fight the constant decay, then you will begin to open up more and more. And that is really how I believe the ascension process is manifesting. Like the first thing to manifest will be memories. Will be memories of past lives, memories of these contracts, memories of how we're being used, you know, how we're in the hybrid programs. And then if you continue that process of doing the inner work, then some of those other abilities will begin to open up again. Ideally. I mean, in theory, it's just, I don't know if people, I mean, we keep talking about how we're controlled, you know, it's just like, you know, Geraldine like had this great list at the beginning of her presentation or somewhere in the middle of it. It was like how everything is like, that is being used to break us down, including electromagnetic frequencies. And that's actually what I've been experiencing a great deal as a targeted individual, you know, and getting microwaved. And I believe we were microwaved really heavily last night. So probably in hopes so that I wouldn't be here tonight. But I had a really bad migraine start in the middle of the night. And when I woke up, it was just splitting. And I spent all day today getting it to disappear. And I know how to do that now. So, but yeah, that's okay.
Essentially, you know, you have to remember what matter is. If you understand matter, you understand that there is nothing that is solid. You know, this is just energy. We are reallocating energy. The mastery of the self means the mastery of energy and life force. You are mastering life force. So that means you can master anything. And although we have been indoctrinated and programmed to believe that we can't, we're powerless to many different things, that is an illusion. That the quicker we break that spell and move into the embodied action of what that looks like, you know, to master energy and life force, the quicker we'll be able to move through these different stages of ascension and awakening. So just think, no matter, there's no matter, you know.
Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your question. And thank you everyone for being here. We sincerely appreciate it. I want to thank each of you ladies for your bravery and your commitment in bringing all this information forward, because each of these topics really bear further discussion. I mean, each one of these topics could end up being a presentation all to itself. So maybe we can get you to come back at a future date. And even though Phil can't talk with us, I want to thank you, Phil, so much for pulling this together. I really appreciate it. And Phil will be back with us in August. So I look forward to hearing a presentation from you then. And I also want to thank all of the people who have been sending me the private text. Your comments are really greatly appreciated. And I do take each one of them to heart. So thank you so much for your comments. To all the people out there on YouTube, I want to thank you for being with us week after week. And I do want to offer to anyone who has not already signed up to be on our mailing list to please do so. You'll receive weekly notifications of all of the presentations that will occur both on Monday night and on Thursday night, as well as any of the upcoming events that we have, such as the hybrid conference at the end of August. And so again, I want to thank everyone so much for being here. And until we are together again next week, namaste, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a beautiful evening.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Big hugs.
Bye-bye.
Hugs
Great
from everybody.
presentation.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, ladies. So beautiful.